Hi everyone, I'm Natasha. I'm in the process of rewilding my traditional cutting gardens, so please subscribe to follow along on this journey. Today we're going to head up to Caledonia, which is 20 minutes out of Hamilton, where I have my largest growing space. I started it with the intention of being a traditional flower farm with perfect rows of brightly colored annuals. I was definitely influenced by social media and what I thought would look really good and what a flower farmer is supposed to be. Very quickly that did not work out for me. That's not how I want to grow. That's not what nature wanted. And so it has been rewilding itself, and now I am joining in and adding in a ton of native plants. So we'll go check that out. There isn't a ton to see right now. Everything is not in bloom yet, and a lot of the native plants are very new, but I'll show you, what's going on there, what it used to look like, and it'll be kind of the before picture for a video I'll do later when things are more in bloom. And I'll show you the layout and just a bit of an explanation of what's going on and what we have growing. So let's head up there. So welcome to what I call my flower farm, but I should probably stop calling it that. As you can see, it doesn't really look like a flower farm. Oh, hello, red-winged blackbird. So I'm going to head down to the end where you'll be able to see the rows that I created early on. So this is a working space, as in work in progress, I should say. It is being transformed into a cutting garden with winding paths and mostly native plants. But as you can see, I think a bit better from this side, I started out with these rows. They're overgrown now, but okay, maybe you can't. That's good if you can't, because I've been trying to let them overgrow. But here's a row, and then, another row of plants with a path between is what I mean. And now I am creating one area in here. It's very dry here. These are all native plants I've put in. These are native plants, and then I have things like this white Alium. So this entire 2 rows with a path in between will be native plants. Here's some Monarda fistulosa. I'm letting grasses come up. Some grasses are native and some aren't. I believe this is a native. Well, it might not be. See, I'm not going to say anything. When it comes to grasses, there's just too many and I find it hard to identify, so keep my mouth shut about that. So this entire area, pretty much starting here, I've been planting. These are all native plants, and I let the native plants like the goldenrod, the fleabane, some lovely fleabane over here, my little daisy field. I let those keep coming up wherever they want to, and I'm just adding in between some things like 9-bark is in there, just a little one. More fleabane. Over here we have lots of grasses and then a small serviceberry that'll grow really beautiful blossoms for cutting. I put a whole bunch of, I have ranunculus growing here, which is obviously not native, but in between that I've added little anemones, native anemones, so they will fill in that space. And so that's the plan for this area. That is just a big work in progress, and maybe I'll do something with the path. All my paths right now are living paths, so I have to mow them, which I don't like because it really disrupts. We have lots of toads here and voles. And I just don't like to bother them or possibly run over them. It's a really horrible thought, and it's so loud. So I would rather create paths that don't need that disruption, but in such a big space, that is a big job and expensive and time consuming. So it's just something I haven't been able to do yet. But so in these 2 rows where it'll be pretty much all native plants, I'll probably move some of that white allium. This, I worked with a sustainable landscape designer called Sunray Gardens, and she designed me the space, telling me where to put all these little plants. There's a little gray dogwood, penstemon, more plants to be planted. And so she helped me create what will look very nice in the future, doing kind of a matrix design around the grasses and the clumps of goldenrod that are just volunteering themselves here. So I'm hoping to have the path be a bit more windy so that you get a really nice gardeny feel as you walk through here. But overall, so this is the planned all native section, but overall I would say it's just been a case of rewilding. Like here we have devil's beggar tick, that is just a nice colony. I'm gonna get my shadow out of the way. That has volunteered itself, and so I'll let that be in this area. And there's other, mostly goldenrod and asters, and grasses and fleabane. I'm just trying to find some asters. But yeah, so anywhere it wants to come up, I let it just do so. Sorry, there's a lot of weeds too. Here's some asters. Everything's a bit dry and droughty right now. Everything I'm planting, I don't know if I already mentioned this, but will be drought tolerant, dry loving, because that's the thing with the native garden. Plan for your space, because you don't want to have to try to make things that don't want to be there struggle to stay alive. You want to choose the right plants for your type of soil. We have heavy clay soil here, and for the conditions that you tend to have. Is it shady? Does it stay pretty dry? So in this area, this has been growing in quite a bit from what I used to have. It's yarrow and all sorts of stuff coming up. I love to see what volunteers itself here, but this is like, as long as I can get through and I'm removing all the invasives and the weeds, and by weeds I mean non-native things. They might not be invasive, but they're not native, so they're not really benefiting the ecosystem. So I'd rather take them out. That's what I mean by weed. And then invasives are problematic, serious plants that cause destruction to nature. That's an invasive. But a weed, in my opinion, is just something unwanted and not native. If something is kind of fast growing and aggressive, but it's native, then that's not a weed to me. That's just a plant to strategically plant and keep an eye on, maybe thin out if necessary, or find an area for it. Ooh, asters all in here next to some Alium. Yeah, find an area for it where it'll work. So as you can see, sometimes my paths just end. I have some valerian. It's not native, but it's a fun plant. Some giant scabiosa will be coming up here. Never grown that before. We'll see how that turns out. But these are things that I planted before knowing I wanted to plant native plants. So I'll just work around that, this big clump of grass. And then I have a very weedy section with some foxgloves that are not native, but they'll be done after this year. And then I have this whole section that I will continue to add native plants to. So that is how this garden is working. I have a whole bunch of apple mint in there, which I really like as a greenery, and it's spread right into the path. It's not native, but it is something as a cut flower I use a lot, and I will just let it fill in the area. I don't consider that a weed because I'm going to be cutting a ton of it and keeping it under control. And that's next to some of that Monarda fistulosa that I absolutely love, which is native. And then I just planted some little lisianthus next to that. So it's a mixed garden in a lot of space. It's just like a patch of some native stuff. Next to the native Monarda is more goldenrod. Next to those, I have a little fragrant sumac native shrub that likes to colonize a little bit and form a thicket. So I'm very excited to have that here. So it'll be kind of thicket area here next to the Monarda and the goldenrod. And then this is just an annual lisianthus that is great for cutting. I have some perennial salvia that's really good for wedding bud vases. And so the strategy, when I first realized the rows of annuals weren't working for me, I let native plants kind of come in and start growing to fill up some of the space so that I had less to just try to manage. Because once I had cleared this space, planted the annuals, and then decided not to grow in so many annuals anymore, it was a very difficult to manage space, as you can imagine, because it's quite large. So letting all the native plants do that has been very helpful to create areas where I don't need to do as much, because the native plants are just taking care of the space for me and growing, rewilding, as I keep saying. It's a great term because it really speaks to letting nature have something back, because humans have taken so much from nature, in my opinion. I don't know if it's just my opinion. Is that really debatable? So yes, and then before I knew I wanted to concentrate on native plants, I came in and planted things like the salvia and the over here the sedum, and all things good for cutting. Some lady's mantle, good for cutting, all these things that I'm showing you, but not native. And I just put them in thinking, well, one better way to handle this space is to grow perennials so that I have less to have to manage. Some beautiful flax, some non-native grasses, but they're kind of cute. They're in flower right now. See if I can get it to zoom in on it. No, briefly. Some more yarrow here. Not native, just an orange variety. I think it's called terracotta. It's quite nice when it blooms. So yeah, so adding in all those perennials helped control the space a little bit. And now I'm coming in and creating more and more pockets of native plants mixed with the non-native. So it will be a large mixed garden. And I did want to be able to showcase one area that's not mixed. That would be all native plants through these 2 rows. And have some, everything's kind of struggling. It just went in and I can see it in kind of distress. We have our columbine. Hey, that doesn't look like wild columbine. Interesting. See, I don't know if it's just stressed out. That to me does not look like wild columbine, but it's from a native plant nursery, so we'll find out. And this is prairie smoke. It was looking so healthy before I put it in, but then I've got to get out here and water a bit as they get established. I have a bunch of other things in there. I just planted this tulip tree, so this will become a canopy tree. So far, as you can see, it's a field. There we go. And it doesn't have the layers. If you watched my other video in my home garden, I have canopy trees, I have shorter trees, I have shrubs, ground cover. This area does not have that. So I could have approached this as a tall grass, prairie, meadow kind of native plant area, but I am doing cutting gardens, and so that doesn't work as well for me. I want to have a whole bunch of plants that are good for cutting, and so I would like to create the more of a different layer, forest floor, shaded areas, all of those different elements with some meadow areas as well. So definitely mixed environment here when I'm creating my native plant cutting garden. So this tulip tree will be a canopy tree. It'll take a long time to get that big. And then I can't remember which smaller tree this is. I think it's spice bush, actually. And so that'll be not a canopy tree, but a under canopy. And there's a tractor going by, it might be a bit loud. And then I have some other shrubs, but they aren't native over here, mixed with some native stuff like goat's beard, native goat's beard, and a little anise hyssop that will bloom this year because it's from last year. This is dotted mint. And I do have some non-native geranium, but it's so pretty. So I'll just quickly show you that. Once again, I'm failing at focus. And then all of this is the native yarrow. So there's one yarrow that's native, and it is white yarrow. So sorry, I know it's not much to look at now, but that will be hopefully spreading in this area. So I have to just keep on top of weeding this area and then leaving little native plants that pop up. I also have some swamp milkweed all in here with the weeds, but it is something that is called swamp milkweed for a reason and really likes moisture. So it's really struggling here. I might have to move all that swamp milkweed, some fungium, non-native, but let's look at this beautiful orange. So I think that is everything I have to show you today. I know I didn't focus in on a lot of the little plants I planted, but that's because I'd rather wait till they're blooming. I mean, there's just so much going on, so many weeds and everything. This is fireweed, native plant. So, you know, I just have so much planted in here, but I'm going to wait to show you them once there's more to see, but at least I thought I'd give you the overview. I just love this space and I think it's really special and fun. So I hope this is a good kind of before picture to be able to show you how I developed this into winding paths and shrubs and all these native plants. Really lovely place to enjoy. So I guess that's everything for today. Thanks again for joining me. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope that you enjoy following along with this and learning about native plants with me and how they can work in a cutting garden. And yeah, there's lots to come in the future, so please do subscribe and we'll go on this journey together.